Hello everyone! We're in London, and last time we've said goodbye in front of the Horse Guards. If you haven't seen that video, we'll leave it linked for you in the description and in the card above, if you want to go and have a look. Before we continue our walk through London with part 2 of this video, we'll give you a few moments to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done this already. This helps us grow and become more visible, and we really appreciate it. Walking through the streets of London, we're passing by the Duke of York's Column, a monument dedicated to Prince Frederick, Duke of York, second son of King George III. And continuing to the Mall Boulevard, passing under the Admiralty Arch, an emblematic building in London, which provides road and pedestrian access to Buckingham Palace and the Trafalgar Square. The Admiralty Arch was commissioned by King Edward VII in memory of his mother, Queen Victoria, and was designed by Aston Webb. It formerly served as the residence of the first Sea Lord and was used by the Admiralty. Until 2011, the building housed government offices, and in 2012 the government leased the building for 125 years for £60 million. With the building being redeveloped into a luxury Waldford Astoria hotel and 4 apartments. The hotel was scheduled to open in late 2023. After passing under the Admiralty Arch, a few steps to the left we come to the Trafalgar Square, a public square in the city of Westminster, which is in the centre of London. A few things we found interesting about this place that was established in the early 19th century around the area formerly known as Charing Cross are, among other things, that it was named Trafalgar to commemorate the Battle of Trafalgar and the British victory in the Napoleonic Wars over the French and Spanish on the 21st of October 1805 off the coast of Cape Trafalgar. This area has been an important landmark since the 1200s, and for centuries the distances measured from Charing Cross have served as benchmarks. Formerly on the site of the present square there was an elaborately designed and enclosed courtyard, King's Mews, which consisted of a collection of riding stables. After George IV moved King's Mews to Buckingham Palace, the area was redeveloped by John Nash, but progress was slow after his death, and the current square did not open until 1844. In the center of the Trafalgar Square, the place of honor is given to the 52-meter-tall Nelson Column that commemorates the Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson's decisive victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. The column is guarded by 4 statues of lions, and the rest of the square is dotted with a series of commemorative statues and sculptures. From here we're going on a walk on the banks of Thames, and on the other side of the river we see some very interesting looking office buildings located on Fenchurch Street, a street in the financial district of London named the City of London. Well known for its non-conformist buildings, it is home to many offices and corporate headquarters. And if on the other side we have office buildings of major players in the world's financial market, in the middle of the river we have a symbol of strength that made the United Kingdom an undisputed power and protected it across the centuries. A ship of the Royal Navy, the HMS Belfast, a town-class light cruiser. The ship is now permanently moored and serves as a museum, being opened and managed by the Imperial War Museum. The ship's history begins in December 1936, and it's the first ship in the Royal Navy to be named after the capital of Northern Ireland, being one of the 10 town-class cruisers. Launched on St. Patrick's Day 1938, its history is closely linked to that of the Second World War, as it started to be used in early August 1939, before the war broke out, and was heavily used throughout the conflict. The HMS Belfast was initially part of the British naval blockade against Germany, and in November 1939 it struck a German mine and spent more than 2 years undergoing extensive repairs. The ship returned to action in November 1942. With improved firepower, radar equipment, and armor, the ship carried out Arctic convoy escorts in the Soviet Union during 1943, and in December 1943 played an important role in the Battle of North Cape, assisting in the destruction of the German battleship Scharnhorst. In June 1944, the Belfast took part in Operation Overlord, supporting the Normandy landings. In June 1945, she was redeployed in the Far East to join the British Pacific Fleet, arriving shortly before the end of World War II. The Belfast saw further combat action between 1950 and 1952 during the Korean War and underwent an extensive modernization between 1956 and 1959. A number of other overseas assignments followed, before it entered reserve in 1963. In 1967, efforts were initiated to prevent the Belfast's expected scrapping and preserve it as a museum ship. A joint committee of the Imperial War Museum, the National Maritime Museum, and the Ministry of Defense was established, which then reported in June 1968 that the preservation was practical. However, in 1971, the government decided against the preservation, prompting the formation of a private trust, the HMS Belfast, to campaign for the preservation. The trust's efforts were successful. The government transferred the ship to the trust in July 1971. Brought to London, it was moored on the River Thames, near the Tower Bridge, in the Pool of London. It opened to the public in October 1971, and the Belfast became a branch of the Imperial War Museum in 1978. From here, we're heading to Tower Bridge, a bascule and suspension bridge built between 1886 and 1894, which was designed by Horace Jones and John Wolfe Barry, with the help of Henry Mark Brunel. The bridge crosses the River Thames close to the Tower of London, and is one of the 5 London bridges owned and maintained by the Bridge House Estate, a charity trust founded in 1282. Tower Bridge forms part of the Inner London Ring Road, and therefore the boundary of the London Congestion Charging Zone, and remains a major traffic route, with 40,000 crossings each day. The bridge was opened by Edward, Prince of Wales, and Alexandra, Princess of Wales, in 1894, and was built to provide better access to London's East End, which expanded its commercial potential in the 19th century. The bridge is 240 meters long, and is made up of 2 bridge towers that stand 65 meters tall and are connected at the upper level by 2 horizontal walkways and a central pair of bascules that can be opened to allow transport across the river to flow. Originally hydraulically powered, the drive mechanism was converted into an electro-hydraulic system in 1972. The bridge deck, which we are on now, is freely accessible to both vehicles and pedestrians, while the bridge's twin towers, the elevated walkways, and the Victorian engine room form part of the Tower Bridge exhibition. After crossing over this international landmark, we reach another one, namely the Tower of London, which, although deceivingly named, is actually a castle. founded in the late 1066 as part of the Norman conquest. Officially known as Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Tower of London, it is a historical castle on the north bank of the River Thames, in the London borough of Tower Hamlets, located on Tower Hill. The castle takes its name from the White Tower, built by William the Conqueror in 1078, to symbolize the oppression inflicted on London by the new Norman ruling class. In its early history, the Grand Palace served as a royal residence, but across the ages it was used for other purposes such as a prison, from 1100 to 1952, as an armory, a treasury, menagerie, home of the Royal Mint, a public record office, and home to the crown jewels of England. The castle went through several phases of expansion, mainly under King Richard I, Henry III, and Edward I in the 12th and 13th centuries, and is built as a complex of several buildings set in two concentric rings of defensive walls and a moat. The Tower of London has played a prominent role in English history. It was besieged several times, and its control was important for the control of the country. So much so that from the early 14th century until the reign of Charles II, in the 17th century, a procession would be led from the tower to Westminster Abbey at the coronation of a monarch. The castle also has some unsolved mysteries, such as the one from the late 15th century, when two princes were housed in the Tower of London, before the coronation of one of them as king, but the two never made it to the coronation, mysteriously disappearing, supposedly killed by their uncle who became king. But this is just a theory, as historians are still having debates on this subject to this day. As time went on, starting from around the Tudor dynasty, the Tower of London became less used as a royal residence. Despite attempts of refortifying and repairing the castle, its defenses did not keep up with the technological advances to withstand artillery attacks. During the same Tudor dynasty that we have mentioned a few moments ago, which stretched between the 16th and the 17th centuries, the castle reached the peak of its use as a prison, which coined the phrase "sent to the tower," when many figures who had fallen from grace were kept within its walls. These include Elizabeth I before she became queen, Sir Walter Raleigh, and Elizabeth Throckmorton. Despite its enduring reputation as a place of torture and death, popularized by the 16th century religious propagandists and the 19th century writers, only 7 people were executed in the tower before the world wars of the 20th century. Executions took place more often on the famous Tower Hill to the north of the castle, and there the number rose to 112 over a period of 400 years. The second half of the 19th century came through with major restoration works, undertaken by Anthony Salvin and John Taylor, due to the opportunity that presented itself after several institutions such as the Royal Mint moved from the castle to other locations, leaving many buildings empty. The pair took the opportunity to restore the tower to what was believed to be the medieval appearance, clearing many of the vacant post-medieval structures. In the First and the Second World War, the tower was again used as a prison and witnessed the execution of 12 men for espionage. After the Second World War, the wartime damages were repaired and the castle was opened to the public. Today, the Tower of London is one of the country's most popular tourist attractions and a World Heritage Site, guarded by the Yellow Wardens, under the protection and care of the charity Historical Royal Palaces, under the ceremonial charge of the Constable of the Tower and the leadership of the resident governor of the Tower of London. And from the Tower of London we're going on a beautiful walk through the streets until we come across the Freemasons Arms pub, and a few steps after, on Great Queen Street between Holborn and Covent Garden, we found the Freemasons Hall, which has been a Masonic meeting place since 1775, when the Premier Ground Lodge bought a house in the street with a garden and a second house behind it. This is the headquarters of the Freemasonry in London, and the seat of the United Grand Lodge of England, and the Supreme Grand Chapter of the Royal Arch Masons of England, as well as a meeting place of many Masonic lodges in the London area. And inside the hall we found a very interesting museum and an impressive library that depict the history of the Freemasons across the ages, and which can be visited for free. The construction of the building where the museum is located today is the work of architect Thomas Sandby, the winner of the project design competition organized for the creation of the Grand Hall, intended to connect the two houses that originally constituted this property, the front one that housed the Freemasons Tavern and the back one that was to become offices and meeting rooms. And from the headquarters of the United Grand Lodge of England, we continue our walk to Westminster Chapel, located in Buckingham Gate, at the corner of Castle Lane and opposite the intersection on Petty Fronts. Westminster Chapel is an evangelical free church with a congregation founded in 1840 and an original church completed in 1841. The initial congregation grew significantly, making the original building overcrowded. So construction of a new building began in 1864, which is the building we see today. The current venue opened its doors on the 6th of July 1865, with a seating capacity of around 1,500, which now has reduced to around 1,000. Apart from the religious services offered to its own congregation, this chapel is also known for hosting Christian meetings and conferences, such as the May meetings of the Congregational Union of England and Wales. From Westminster Chapel we're heading to Hyde Park, a 140-hectare historical park, and the largest of the parks and green spaces which form a chain from Kensington Palace to Kensington Gardens and Hyde Park to Hyde Park Corner, Green Park, past Buckingham Palace, and from there to St. James Park. The park is divided by the Serpentine and Longwater Lakes, and was established by Henry VIII in 1536, when he took the land from Westminster Abbey and used it as a hunting ground. Hyde Park was opened to the public in 1637 and quickly became a popular venue, particularly for the May Day parades. Major improvements took place in the early 18th century under Queen Caroline, and at the same time it became a popular place for duels, often involving members of the nobility. Also in this park in the 19th century the Great Exhibition of 1851 took place, for which the Crystal Palace designed by Joseph Paxton was built. A key feature of Hyde Park since the 19th century are the free speech and protest. Speaker's Corner has been established here as a point of free speech and debate since 1872. While Chartists, the Reform League, suffragettes, and the Stop the War Coalition all staged protests here. In the 20th century, the park was known for hosting large-scale free rock music concerts featuring groups such as Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, and Queen. And from Hyde Park we head to Buckingham Palace via Hyde Park Corner, which is located between Knightsbridge, Belgravia, and Mayfair, at a major road junction in the southeast corner of Hyde Park. The intersection includes a wide roundabout with a green space in the center, which is now the seating for Burton's Wellington Arch. also known as the Arch of the Constitution, or originally as the Green Park Arch. This triumphal arch is a Grade 1 listed building and was built on plans created by Decimus Burton. The arch was not always in the same place we find it today, but when it was built between 1826 and 1830, the arch was in a nearby location slightly to the east, just opposite Burton's entrance to Hyde Park, from where it was moved a short distance to the present site in the center of the Constitution Hill Road in 1882-1883. Originally, the triumphal arch supported a colossal equestrian statue of the first Duke of Wellington, from whom it took its name, and which at the moment stands nearby, being replaced at the top of the monument by a statue by Adrian Jones, called Peace Descending of the Quadriga of War, a bronze statue of the Goddess of Victory, Nike, riding a quadriga, an ancient four-horse chariot. Not far away is the Royal Artillery Memorial, a First World War memorial unveiled in 1925, designed by Charles Sargent Jagger, with architectural work by Lionel Pearson. The memorial commemorates the 49,076 Royal Artillery soldiers killed in the First World War. And not far away is Buckingham Palace, London's best-known royal residence and the administrative seat of the United Kingdom's monarch. Located in the city of Westminster, the palace is often the center of attention for state occasions, being a focal point for the British people in times of national joy and mourning. Originally known as Buckingham House, the building at the center of today's palace was a large house built for the Duke of Buckingham in 1703. The building was later renamed the Queen's House, after King George III purchased it in 1761 to serve as a private residence for Queen Charlotte. In the 19th century, it was enlarged by architects John Nash and Edward Blore, building 3 wings around the central courtyard. And in 1837, Buckingham Palace became the London residence of the British monarch upon Queen Victoria's ascension to the throne. King Edward VII, on advice of Charles Long, undertook a partial redecoration in a cream and gold Belle Epoque color scheme. The last major structural addition, including the east front, which contains the well-known balcony from which the royal family traditionally appears to greet the crowds, were made in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Much of the original 19th century interior decoration, which includes extensive use of brightly colored scagliola and blue and pink lapis, still survives. The palace suffered damage during the Second World War, when a German bomb destroyed the palace's chapel, which was later replaced by the Queen's Gallery, opened to the public in 1962 to display the works of art from the royal collection. The staterooms used for official and state receptions are open to the public each year for most of August and September, and some days in winter and spring. And very close, in front of the palace, is the Victoria Memorial, dedicated to Queen Victoria and created by the sculptor Sir Thomas Brock. This monument was designed in 1901 and unveiled on May 16, 1911, although it wasn't completed until 1924. The Victoria Memorial has an elaborate iconographic sculpture scheme with a central pillar of Pentelic marble and statues of Larsa marble and gilded bronze. The monument weighs 2,300 tons and is 32 meters in diameter. It was the centerpiece of an ambitious urban planning project, that included the creation of the Queen's Gardens to a design by Sir Aston Webb, and the restoration of the facade of Buckingham Palace by the same architect. And now we bid farewell to Buckingham Palace and make our way back through Hyde Park to Kensington Garden, stopping at the Round Pond, an ornamental lake in front of Kensington Palace, and a splendid place full of all kinds of birds, especially ducks and swans, where we'll also spend a few moments to enjoy the view and tell you a little bit about this place. The pond was created in 1730 by George II. It is approximately 2.8 hectares and up to 5 meters in depth. And despite its name, the lake is not circular, but rectangular with steps and rounded corners. The lake has a long history and is very popular with the model yacht enthusiasts. It is the home of the Model Yacht Sailing Association, founded in 1876, and the London Model Yacht Club, founded in 1884. And next to this beautiful lake is the Kensington Palace, a royal residence in the royal borough of Kensington and Chelsea in London. The palace has been the residence of the British royal family since the 17th century and is currently the official London residence of the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester and the Duke and Duchess of Kent, and the Prince and Princess Michael of Kent. Today, the staterooms are open to the public and run by the independent charity Historical Royal Palaces, the same organization that runs the Tower of London. And the palace houses many paintings and other items from the royal collection. The palace's offices and the private accommodations remain the responsibility of the royal household and are maintained by the Royal Household Property section. And having said all of this, we'll stop here, in front of the Kensington Palace near the Round Pond Lake, to admire the swans a little more, before leaving London and England for Romania. If you liked today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking that subscribe button. Leave a like and share this video with others. And as for us, we're going to meet you again in Romania, in the mountains area, where we're going to visit some castles and show you some places that you should visit when you go there. See you soon!